You heard the phrase, fake it till you make it? Trash that phrase.
That's the slogan.
Hello, I'm from Banner Oak, North Carolina. Last name is Krug. I've known Tim for years and years. Let me explain to you real quick that you see a couple of cameras going. You won't see the one in the back. You're not going to be in this in any way. We have a new YouTube channel that's called A Quest for Greatness, and it's about this journey, letting people in on this journey as a Christian. A lot of people think that our lives are perfect, and part of that kind of builds into what I'm talking about tonight. Sometimes we put on a show, don't we? Like everything's all good and there's no problems and we do everything right and we think everything right. And it lets people in, lets them see that we struggle too. We're just regular human beings, and we're trying to define what that greatness is. So the topic for tonight is weaknesses, right? Know your weaknesses. Well, you talk about loving God. You should love God, and you should love God when you're growing up more than your family and more than your wife, your husband, and your kids, or whatever else. And they don't tell you sometimes that it's a process, that you practice this, that you grow into this. It's a different kind of relationship, isn't it, with God? Because we don't experience God the way we do each other and so forth. Weaknesses. One of the most difficult things about it is just admitting it, right? And it's just being honest with self. And there's so many different layers to this. If I say, who's got your Bible? How many of you do this? Some of you still use paper. I still get looks in the church. People are like, I can't believe he doesn't have paper. Like those versions are better. If you feel that way, I apologize. I'm not making fun of you. But this here is still the same as what you got on paper. Just it's all nice and neatly tucked away in here. Part of this is just being honest. It's being honest with me. We as Christians need to be honest. We need to not hold up these facades of, and we do this, don't we? Where do you see this? Where we hold up sort of this facade and we intimidate other people. Hey, who's watching TV? No, I'm kidding. Man, I ain't even got started yet. I know I can't be that boring. All right, so give me an example of where we sort of hold up this facade, if you will, and intimidate people maybe. And it's maybe not intentional. I'm not degrading the church and not dogging the church. I'm just saying we have work to do. Can you agree with that? All right, got any examples?
Social media.
Social media. How so? Anybody. She doesn't have to. I won't pick on her. But social media.
And try to make it look like you have perfect life.
Oh, yes, right? You ever get depressed looking at social media? Like, man, I ain't doing none of that stuff. And you're like, I wonder if that's Matthew 6, like, or wherever it says, the right hand shouldn't know what the left hand's doing. Like, they're letting the left hand, the right hand, both feet, and everybody else know what they're doing. Now, I've got to be honest about me, first of all. It'd be easier for me to point at everybody else. You got this problem, you got that problem, you got and so forth. You know what I mean? We can do that easily. To just be honest with our own, there are some advantages of dealing with my weaknesses. Me dealing with my weaknesses. The first of them is, you heard the phrase, fake it till you make it? Trash that phrase. Trash that phrase. Don't fake it. Just be real. Just be honest. Just know who you are, where you're going. You know why? Because the facade, it isn't what, nobody has it all figured out. Don't you have people you look up to? You have people you look up to spiritually. You don't think they go to God every day and go, I messed up? Or they probably go to God. How many of us, you don't have to raise your hands, how many of us go to God every day and we're dealing with a problem we've been dealing with for a long time? And we say, it's me again, it's the same dumb problem. Those people have it too. Fake it till you make it sort of hides this honesty. She said, that's my slogan. I didn't expect nobody to say that, which is fine. It's fine. I just trashed her slogan. She's like, I'm leaving. Turn TV on. Turn TV on. Just have the courage to be real with everybody. I tell my kids the hardest thing, and my kids are 15, 17, 19, and 21. One of them you see around here when their car's working and in good shape every now and then. And so you see, I tell them that one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do is just be you. Is not bend to the pressure. And the pressures come from everywhere. They come from the world, they come from Christians, they come from church, they come from home, they come from everywhere. Because everybody's got thoughts and everybody wants to tell you how to do you. Knowing your weaknesses allows you to be open for improvement. You are never, ever going to get better. You're never, ever going to become great in God's eyes if you don't look at who you are and are honest about it. We talk sometimes in big concepts like church and we and so forth. You are going to stand in front of God, you and him. So am I. It's a personal relationship. So knowing your weaknesses is going to help you open up for improvement. Examine yourself. Take a long look at yourself and see whether you meet the standard, whether you meet the requirement. It means that I've got to know the requirements. I've got to know the standard and see whether or not I measure up. It is to test and examine and to scrutinize the genuineness. Am I what I say I am? Or do I just go to church? There's a lot of people and this is a sad thing, there's a lot of people in the Christian, we'll just say the Christian world, who go to church every Sunday. And if you have them a Sunday night service and a Wednesday and maybe come to Devo, and that's all the religion, their religion consists of. But they check some boxes and they go, good to go. And they don't really have a relationship with God. And some of us make ourselves, I'm rambling a little bit, as they say, I'm going from preaching to meddling here. But some of them will be like, I go to church. They'd be like that Pharisee in, the Pharisee, in Luke 18. Thank you. I almost said 17. In Luke 18. And I check all these boxes and so forth. And I mentioned that recently in a lesson. And like when you go to church 4 hours a week, right? Sunday twice, Wednesday here, maybe 5 hours. And it's, I'm doing well. That's all they'll ever have, because they're comfortable with that. But if you looked at me as a dad and you said, I told you I was home 5 hours a week and I was a dad and a husband 5 hours every week, you go, failure. You see, it's all in how we look at it. So be able to scrutinize your faith. How genuine is it? And against the standard. How many of you looked in the mirror today? Raise your hand on this one. Yeah, I know at least a lot of ladies, you looked in the mirror. How many of you got up this morning and looked in the mirror and went, yep? Or how many of you looked in the mirror this morning and went, ooh, that's bad, and then walked off? And then okay. You got two of them, right? There's your example of what not to do.
Bad as in the sense of bad, not good bad.
Yeah, no. We're not using the street lingo. Like real, literal, not good. Not as in bad, like 1980s Michael Jackson video. See, I go way back. But you look at that and you say, how many of us looked in the mirror and were like, that's really terrible. And then didn't do anything about it. No deodorant, nothing on the hair, nothing on the face, didn't wash anything, just walked. That's what he's talking about here. To hear the word, to be in church all your life, to go to class, to study, to read, and all this other stuff, and not do anything with it, is like sweeping it under the rug. How are you ever going to live a lifestyle of confession to God if you don't personally admit your weaknesses? How are you ever going to, and how big is confession? What is it, 1 John here? 1 John chapter 1, verses 8 and 9.
If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. It's conditional, right? If I confess, which means what? Break it down for me.
Telling yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Broken down even better than I was going to do it. Tell on yourself. And you got to think about that for a minute. All seriousness here. You really got to think about that. You're going to tell God, look what I did. And that's a moment you need to have and I need to have. We kind of can take that for granted if you're not careful, where we're just, oh God, it's me, I did it again, and I'm sorry. And off you go. And that doesn't look or sound anything like the godly sorrow, the godly grief in 2 Corinthians chapter 7 that just tears you apart, tears at you. But how good were you admitting to your parents what you did wrong? Any of you in here lie? I lied like a dog. I'm sorry to say that, but I lied like a dog because I did not want to admit. Some of this is not easy, to admit what you did wrong, to tell God, and not just gloss over it either. I'm guilty of sin. Tell him what you did. Be honest about it. You will never, ever not have a goal in front of you in your Christian walk with the Lord, which is a beautiful thing. I'll always have work to do. I'll always have improvements to make. Knowing your weaknesses allows you to be open for improvement. It allows you to fight pride head on. Psalm 32 and verse 5.
I acknowledge my sin to you, and my iniquities I have not hidden. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgive the iniquities of my sin.
I didn't need any extra. Psalm 38 and verse 18. I confess my iniquity. I am sorry for my sin. It's plain and simple, isn't it? It takes humility to admit you've done wrong. You got to lower yourself. It's hard to brag when you're having prayers like this, isn't it? It's hard to look at other people. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's hard to look at other people and see what all's wrong with them when you're talking like this to God, isn't it? Now, this sounds like really negative, but that'll hurt your self-esteem. If all you do is focus on what you do wrong, I'm not saying that anyway, it'll hurt your self-esteem. You don't need self-esteem. Tell them in health class at school, you don't need self-esteem, you don't. Dad, they're laughing at me. I'm dead serious. You don't need, as children of God, you do not need self-esteem. You need God esteem. You need God to approve you. You don't need your own approval. You don't need other people's approval. And that's a beautiful thing too, because you got one person to please. You don't need to look. You can look at yourself and value yourself, right? But through whose eyes? Through God's eyes. I'm telling you, I've been guilty of judging, and I still fight it a lot. I've been guilty of looking down on other people. It's harder. It's getting harder for me to do this when I work on me, because I got a lot to work on. And I can also empathize with people better because I understand what it's like to struggle and to suffer. And it makes me want to help people up more than just kick them while they're down and judge them like that. It's easy to be a hypocrite, isn't it? We always have the lessons on judging and everybody goes, yeah, those people over there have trouble with judging. Nobody's ever guilty of it themselves. It's always everybody else. I can't believe I did this video series recently on spiritual arrogance, and what I was afraid of was everybody was going to be watching this going, I know a bunch of people who are spiritually arrogant. Instead of going, let me look inwardly because this could be me. Knowing your weakness allows Christ to get the glory. This is one of the big ones. Knowing your weaknesses allows Christ to get the glory. Paul said, when I am weak, then I am strong in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. So now I'll tell you about my weaknesses. Now I'm happy to have these, so to speak, in that sense, because this is where Jesus can shine. God's power can shine. Jesus came here in Philippians chapter 2 and verse 7, depending on your translation, and did what? He made himself no reputation. He emptied himself, one translation says. Another translation says he became nothing. Everybody's goal, right? I want to be nobody. That was the last one there of using weakness. God using weakness to show his power. Jesus came here and became a nobody in order to save the entire world, humanity, front to back, from beginning to end. Here are some options of how you, this week, tonight, tomorrow, from here on out, find 2 people that you can admit to everything. Find 2 people. Find 1, find 2 that you can admit everything to. So somebody else knows, somebody else can help you be accountable, somebody else you can share with. This is brotherhood. We are practicing to be together forever. So the faster we develop close relationships now, the better off we're gonna be, the further we're gonna be along. Find some people you can talk to and tell them, I struggle with this. Stop battling it by yourself in that regard. Make a list. Make a list of weaknesses to work on. I know of a guy who's passed on now that would take one thing a year that he was really going to work on. He wouldn't just work on one thing every year, but he would take one thing that he was really going to focus on. He'd find scripture and he'd put that in his Bible, and that's what he would focus on for a whole year, changing that aspect, changing that weakness. Have one prayer. I'm big on one prayer. A prayer of thanksgiving every day does you good. We don't ask God for anything. You just pray saying thank you. What about a prayer of confession? Now, if you're like me, you can do that all day long, and that's that pray without ceasing. But one prayer in the morning where you get up and confess, and we all have things we can work on. That's part of that goal I mentioned earlier on. And there's another way. How many of you have tried to lose weight at all? I'm trying now. So I stand like this. I'm trying now, and I'm using the MyFitnessPal. And what am I doing every day in the MyFitnessPal? I am what I eat, what I do, whether or not I exercise. Well, what's that?
Are you logging?
Logging it in, tracking it, right? Track this. Log your weaknesses. Track them. Treat them like something you want to get rid of, which is, for me, weight. I mean, if there's something to get rid of, these weaknesses and these problems, these sins are it. Pay attention to them. Track them like that. Take some time on it. Take some effort. All right. Let's be real. Let's be honest. And we won't celebrate these things, but we won't hide them away either, like we got it all figured out. We won't make other people feel like they can't come to us either as well. All right, thank you for having me. I hope this has helped, and I hope to be back sometime.